I'm Warren Allen Smith, sitting in my apartment with Alan Reza, who spent a summer with me, and I got to know him pretty well, and he's here to find out a little more about me. Were you mischievous as a kid?
Well, you're my dad. Well, I'm your son, you're supposed to know, right? As son number 5. But I think I was. Yeah.
What do you know about my being a young kid?
I only assumed that you were very mischievous, but I don't actually pretty much. I never thought of asking you how you were. How were you as a kid?
Well, I can give you some examples.
Okay.
For example, one of my best friends was Helen Faye Schaefer. Her dad ran the lumberyard, and the person who lived next to the lumberyard in an unpainted house, it was sort of scary, was Grace Yard. And she lived there all alone, and we kids knew that she was a witch. So when she passed one day, she always had a parasol. When she passed, we did the usual, we threw rocks at her. And
the parasol is?
A parasol is an umbrella. And she, if it was raining, it was okay, but she did it even when the sun was shining. She carried it. All right, so when she left us, we saw that a little further down the road, she fell to the gravel road on her way to the post office, and she started turning in the dust.
Turning.
And we knew that was proof that she was a witch.
Okay.
Because nobody else in town
Right.
would do that kind of thing. What we learned later, of course, was she was epileptic. Whether it was grand mal or a lesser form of mal, we didn't know.
Did you feel bad afterwards? Did you understand what it was?
We didn't feel bad at all. And we
Because
told our parents that night, hey, Grace Yard, when we threw rocks at her, she turned around and said, "Kiss my ass."
You thought that was funny.
And my parents didn't scold me, and her parents didn't scold her.
So
it was one instance of how society treats individuals. In a town of 328, way out in the boondocks of Minburn, Iowa. Another example, Dorothy McDade was one of my friends. She was the Methodist minister's daughter. She lived next to a retired farmer, Charlie Wilson, and he was old. We knew he was old because if you're old, you must have known Abraham Lincoln. This is the way kids think, little kids think. So we would ask him, "Charlie, how well did you know Lincoln?" And he would swear at us. When he went to the grocery, he would swear at the grocer because he paid 10 cents for a can of beans, pork and beans. There was no pork in there. So it's another one of the idiosyncrasies of the time. And when his apple tree extended over into Dorothy's yard, we, of course, would reach and have a nice fresh apple. He came out with a saw and sawed the tree down, the apple tree.
Tree? Or
the
branch?
whole tree, the whole tree.
Just because it was going on?
Yes.
It's mean old man.
Right. And he was probably as mean as Grace Yard, meaning he wasn't mean at all. Later on, by the way, when I had a paper route, she came out and said, "Can I get a newspaper?"
What do you mean you had a paper out?
I had a paper route.
Oh, route, okay. You were delivering papers.
Right, delivering papers as a teenager now. And I didn't really want her as a customer, but when she said, "Do you want me, or may I buy the newspapers by the week?" Sure, it was 15 cents. 5 cents, 5 days times 3 cents. Anyway, so I had to go into her kitchen in order to sign her up. And of course I was looking for trap doors from my youth. And she was just the nicest lady, just completely nice lady. So between the time that I was really young and teenager, I did change a lot. Another example, on Sundays, we couldn't play baseball in town. There was no drinking of beer. You had to go to church, and that was it. Your whole day had to be connected with the church somehow. And my dad, being a baseball player, thought that we should be able to play baseball on Sundays. And the head of the school board was Clem Llewellyn, and he thought we should play baseball also. So one day he simply said, we're going to play baseball next weekend. Well, the Methodist minister came, not Dorothy's father, but the next one. They only stayed in town a few years. When the Methodist minister came, the head of the school board socked him in the mouth and said, "Play ball!" That was the end of that incident. So, being a kid at that time, yeah, I was quite mischievous, I would say.
And this is the 1920s?
This would be the 1920s, late 1920s,
Iowa.
early 1930s.
Small town Iowa.
Depression. I was a depression baby at that time. So, you know a little bit more about me. What else do you wonder?
I was wondering actually, why Lincoln? Why did you guys used to think old men were? Why was that the norm?
Well, when you're a kid.
But Lincoln wasn't the president or anything around that time.
No.
So why Lincoln?
But kids don't know about history. They simply know that old people must know all the other old people.
And Lincoln, I guess, was a very prominent figure at that time, right?
He was the best of the oldest people that we knew.
That everyone was talking about.
The president was Warren Harding.
Warren Harding, yeah, who knows what him?
After whom I was named, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
You were named after a president?
Yeah.
See, we didn't know that today. I mean,
Well,
did you know that?
no,
I didn't know that.
no.
Wow.
Warren Harding's wife lived in New Canaan, where I then lived later, and she pronounced his name Warren.
So what did you used to want to do when you were a kid? Like, what did you think when you want to grow up you wanted to be?
I had no
aspirations?
Ideas whatsoever, except to be sure that I was in school on time. And this, we're talking about first grade and second grade.
Nothing like, be an astronaut or...
Yeah, I wanted to be a cowboy. Yeah, Clark Gable.
You wanted to be a cowboy?
Cowboy, yeah. And we did have bulls and cows and horses and that, but...
So is that the mischievous part in you, Warren? Like, cowboys are portrayed as being bad and tough men,
well,
not afraid.
The cowboys were good because they killed the Indians. And that was all right.
That's violence.
Huh?
That's violence.
Yeah, there was violence, in addition to being naive about history. But Iowa, this little town of 328, was a good place to grow up in.
But what was the fun thing, so I mean, because, it's not the time when you had arcades or the movies or soda pops or, it was totally different time, like in the 60s and 70s. So at that time, what was the norm for?
The weekend movies, they were the cowboys that shot the Indians.
So in a 328 town, like in a town...
Well, we had to go to another town. There was no movie house.
So that's just teenagers with...
No, what was fun was to go to Sunday school.
Sunday school.
We're talking now this early period. So, and the weekend movie, cowboy movies. That was it. No other fun.
Okay. Well, that was interesting to know about.
I think that's enough to tell you about my childhood.